Hi, it's Ian from the Postal Hub podcast.
And Marek from Last Mile Experts.
And we are the Last Mile Prophets. This is the last word on the last mile. This video is created thanks to Modern Expo, one of the key players in the world's parcel locker market. Modern Expo's product portfolio includes innovative solutions with refrigeration and freezing cells, Bluetooth locks, and even personal parcel lockers. Mark, at Parcel and Post Expo just recently, we ran an event for Modern Expo, and, well, we ran it on their stand, Mark, and there was a great crowd, and we recorded some parts of our presentation.
Absolutely, I think it was really cool. We got a lot of audience engagement, some really good questions, both from potential customers and even from competitors. So it was quite interesting. And for me, the most important thing, this is an emotive topic. People are really interested in it. They understand how important it is. And the engagement and the fact that people, really wanted to find out what's happening in this space was almost electrifying.
So here are some, let's call them edited highlights of our presentation that we ran on the Modern Expo stand at Parcel and Post Expo. If you've got questions, pop them down below. Maybe we can answer them. Maybe we'll run a workshop for you. So please do get in contact with us if you've got any questions arising out of this video.
So Marek, I wanted to start with a bit of a broad question, because we have probably a few last mile players, e-commerce players here in the audience. The first question is always, why should I care about out-of-home delivery at all? Now, why is out-of-home delivery important in the modern last mile scene?
That's my favourite question. Several reasons, but one of them is capacity. The only way to really achieve capacity today is with out-of-home. Now, I'll give you an example. Does anyone here have any idea what a really efficient courier delivering to door can deliver in an urban area in a day? Be careful, because the people I know are going to ask you a question and going to call you out.
You're talking about delivering from a white van, delivering parcels to residential addresses.
Exactly, in an urban area. Come on then, Mirek, you're the lucky one.
35?
Okay, great. Well, actually it's a bit more than 35. The best Amazon courier from when I was around there was doing around about 200, but typically a to-door courier will do about 150 parcels. Now, what max, Eric says, in an urban area. Now, what can a courier dedicated to lockers and delivering to lockers do? Any idea? Come on, there must be some locker people here. Actually, that's really good. Someone said 1,000, which is really good. I would have thought 1,000 is obscenely high in terms of amount, but it isn't. In fact, my local courier, I hijacked him a few days ago and asked him, and on a bad day, he'll do about 850. On a good day, he will do 1,300 plus parcels. So that's one of the main reasons nobody can achieve anything like the capacity in terms of delivery with to-door delivery. But there's one other thing. Lockers give pretty much 100% first-time delivery, which is really, really important. You'll never get that, even in really good markets like the UK, where you can deliver 97, 8% first time, if you're a good carrier like DPD, you cannot achieve more or less 100%. So there's a lot of other reasons, but those are two really, really important. Actually, I should mention a third one, cost. It costs, if you have an efficient locker network, it's a fraction of the cost for delivery.
Now, I want to ask, you've kind of answered my question. My question is actually not about lockers, but about out-of-home delivery. So you've explained lockers. Are lockers the be-all and end-all of out-of-home, or do they form part of your out-of-home network?
It's almost as though I planned these questions. It's just what I wanted you to ask. So actually, yes, lockers and PUDOs. Does everybody know what a PUDO is? If you're American, then I'll say access points. Basically, it's a manual version of a PUDO. So you have a person, so something like Collect Plus in the UK. So PUDOs and lockers work very well together because a PUDO is very easy to set up. It can be complementary because if you have PUDOs, you can quickly understand where the heat map points are, where you could set up a locker. And PUDOs actually are relatively inexpensive if you have low volumes. at peak time, you need an alternative to lockers, which are a piece of metal. You cannot stretch it. So PUDOs are a really great complement. You know, my favorite example, Ian, military example, I like military history, and it's like in an army. If you have just infantry, it will not be that successful. If you have just tanks, it's not so successful. So if you like, the tanks are the lockers, or the lockers are the tanks, and the PUDOs are the infantry. Together, they work really well together.
Now, you also sort of touched on something there which I wanted to expand upon. You mentioned about testing the waters with PUDOs. Because to set up a PUDO, you said it's I don't say quick and dirty, but I think you all know what I mean. You can actually set up a PUDO in 30 minutes. You give them a mobile device, and you can do over-the-phone training, and in half an hour, you've got a PUDO set up. Now, these days you can get lockers set up pretty quickly as well, but can you use a PUDO network, so partnering with retailers like news agencies, pharmacies, florists, etc., to get your parcels close to the consumer? You said something about a heat map. What did you mean by that, and what does that mean for lockers?
So the heat map will show you where people are actually taking their parcels from, getting them delivered to, making returns to. So it's where there is usage. And it means that you put a locker in a location that will work. Because the worst thing that you can do is put a €10,000 machine plus costs of implementing it in a place that just doesn't work. And by the way, I've seen some of them. I think the record one, I won't mention which company, but it was in the UK, where there was a locker in a dark and dingy alley, which I would be terrified to go to. And surprise, surprise, there were not too many people picking up the parcels.
I think when it comes to locker locations, another thing is that you might install a locker, but you have to be not brave enough, but smart enough to realise when it's not working. So I have an example from Australia where there was a very successful parcel locker in a food court. So a food court at the bottom of an office building that had a lot of traffic. Pandemic comes along, the entire office block starts working from home, and that parcel locker goes from champion to chump. So now you've got a lump of metal that really should be somewhere else. So we've got location. You've got to pick the right location, slipper distance, as Marek said, ideally accessible, if not 24 hours, then 22 hours a day, right? It's got to be accessible not just to the client, who's or end consumer who's picking up the parcel. It has to be accessible for the delivery driver, who has to be able to get his or her van close by to be able to get the parcels into the locker. You've got get the software right, after-sales support, service level agreements, and things like that.
Which, by the way, people quite often miss. They look at the cost of the locker, they don't look at the total cost of ownership of the locker. Because there's lots of other elements. Servicing, can they guarantee servicing? What about software updates? What about all the little extras?
Actually, that's what I wanted you to talk about. I wanted you to talk a bit about that because it is a little bit overlooked, especially when you consider how contract heavy the postal sector is. That aspect of after-sales service and ongoing maintenance, it is overlooked, isn't it?
Absolutely, and people very often miss the small print in the SLA and the service level agreement. The small print will talk about, okay, what is the reaction time if something goes wrong? What are you able to do in terms of servicing of the machines? Do you end up with machines that look horrible and dirty? Because in our part of the world, certainly, you have winters that are pretty tough. So, you know, there's a lot of stuff like that that you can very easily miss the boat on, and then you're in trouble.
A rich man's world. I have turned the soul of this beautiful land, but that beauty. A rich man's world. I have turned the soul of this beautiful land, but
yeah, obviously, Marek mentioned about our booth. It's called Pocket Park, which is a global trend of modern cities development. So when we compare big parks with small urban parks, small urban parks are much better for people. So for example, if there are some researches, if we divide the New York Central Park into small pocket parks, it will be much better for people's health and people just feeling. And coming back to Allegro, what you mentioned, I think this is a perfect example of how they change the view of parcel lockers with the plants. It's like a green island, and to make this island green, especially during such a hot summers as we have right now, you need to water the plants. And we developed actually a very simple solution, but which allows us to do it, which allows to make these green islands inside of the city. So basically the rainwater is being collected to the, which fall on the roof. It's being collected into the tank, and from the tank it distributes equally to the plants, so basically watering them up. It's a really simple solution, and I guess combining such simple features, some simple solutions, we will create the city of the future, the modern, green, sustainable cities.
Well, on the topic of decarbonising logistics, I think we need to bear in mind this emerging idea of the 15-minute city. Have we heard about this, the 15-minute city? So breaking the city up into chunks so you can access all your local services easily and hopefully on foot. So this idea of having parcel lockers as part of your urban furniture, it fits into this concept of the 15-minute city. Now this is a little bit of an academic theory right now, but as major metropolises or metropoli? The Greek,
I think it's changing now, isn't it?
Yeah, major cities in Europe start adopting these sorts of principles alongside things like low emission zones, green zones and all of that. We as a sector need to be aware of all the different strategies we can employ to decarbonise logistics. So as Mark has outlined, parcel lockers form part of that, customer education forms part of that. You can even go the full bpost eco-zone and get the parcels delivered to the lockers in electric vehicles, hopefully using green electricity, so that we are reducing our overall impact. Because let's be honest, what is it? I think 17% of global emissions comes from the transport sector, and we are part of that. So, anyway, I'm getting on my high horse.
And it's growing, and the truth is it's growing. But I think what's really cool, and I think the whole idea of this stand is about showing how things can change. We're part of it. We can choose what we do. We can either support doing the right thing or not. I wonder whether there isn't time to let some questions...
I was just about to say, since we have such an outgoing audience that are possibly leaping out of their chairs wanting to ask questions, do you have any questions? While we've got Marta Krzyzewski, ex-CEO, DPD, 14 countries, Vice President, Logistics EU for Amazon, leading expert on this, that and the other.
And half of the last mile profits.
One half of the last mile profits. Any questions that you want to ask? He's here. Ordinarily he charges a huge amount per hour, you wouldn't believe it. So, if you have questions, ask them up, shoot your hand up, and I will come to you with a microphone. I've got a question here.
Yes, this is Rasmus from Lebanon. I have a question. In very many countries, you already see that there is in one location there is so many different providers. So at some point there has to be some kind of collaboration or someone who is making that network agnostic. What is kind of like fire for that? What may cause that? What do you think?
That's a really
What's really needs to happen for people to start thinking, oh, now we need to really make it agnostic, really?
I think it's a really good question. And honestly, I hope that there are going to be two ways. One way is for governments to say they don't accept it. So in some countries, actually Austria is pretty big on that. The government is beginning to get interested in saying, no, we're not going to have 8 lockers next to each other. But it's also us, the consumer, because if we start getting more interested, and the Nordics and Baltics, by the way, I think are close to the Nordics in terms of mentality, I think the consumer is going to start saying, this is crazy. Not only from even the ecological perspective, Rasmus, but from the perspective that I want one app, one machine, not 10 apps, not 10 places to go. So imagine I'm picking up 3 parcels, and I go to machine X, which is an Omniva machine. Then I go next door to a DPD machine. Then I go next door to another machine. That's crazy.
There's another debate here, which is about the use of public space. So if you've got 3 lockers and none of them are full, why is the public giving up public space for these underperforming parcel lockers? I know that's the argument for combining, but it also becomes a public policy issue. So the local governments will start looking at it. You're right, consumers need to start driving this as well. And this is one of my personal opinions, is that we as an industry need to have better standardised reporting to the consumer of what the emissions are per delivery.
And that's a really good point. Can you imagine that when you click, not only do you see that out of home, a locker or a PUDO is the most efficient, the cheapest solution, but you see how many trees you are saving by using that option. And honestly, I think there's a huge, huge educational job that needs to be done.
There is, and there's a research part of that as well. And I would encourage the logistics, not just the actual postal operators and the parcel operators, but also e-commerce players and the technology providers to engage more with researchers so we can get some real tangible and trustworthy data on this. Because there's some really interesting talk about, and I'm rambling now, Mark.
No, but I think it's really valuable. But the most important thing, at the end of the day, we have to change our mindset. Because the historic mindset, I'm the king of the castle, my network is closed, and I'm sorry to say, but postal operators are particularly guilty of that mindset, has to change.
Any other questions from the floor? Got a question?
Oh wow,
This is good. First,
please hold it close because
So over in recent years, postal operators have found it more and more difficult to hit kind of quality of service targets. Do you think PUDO and lockers might help in terms of hitting those regulatory targets as opposed to deliver so many more?
Well, that's a super question. The truth is, first of all, lockers and PUDOs are exceptionally efficient in terms of first-time delivery. So not only is it good actually for postal operators who can fulfill their service obligations, it's great for e-commerce because if you fail to deliver, actually I'll tell you a little secret that I heard from Amazon, but don't tell anyone I told you. If you fail to deliver first time, you're 6 times more likely to have a service failure later on. So first time delivery is the holy grail. And out of home is really important for that. So not only does it mean that you're more likely to get first time delivery success, you're more likely to not fail because you have capacity, because your guy is delivering, or girl, 1,000 plus minus parcels per day, not maximum 200. And then there's one other thing, which is not so much about the statistics, but it's customer experience and choice. The customer has a choice. Because I could have even ordered a home delivery, and then it turns out I have to go and pick up my daughter from the doctor or something, and it's no longer convenient. And the alternative to be able to take a locker is so important.
We've got another question down the floor.
Yeah, I would like to add on this first-time delivery. It's actually really important, and especially as you mentioned in rural areas where the local, our product can help. This is specially designed for residential buildings, and it pretty much guarantees 100% first-time delivery to the private residential houses in rural areas and everywhere.
And of course, the most important thing, please, if you do a residential parcel locker, make sure it's in front of the building, not behind an access-controlled entrance.
And just while we're talking about the usage of parcel lockers, let's remember they can not just be for direct deliveries, but for those failed first-time deliveries.
Absolutely.
So they can have that purpose as well as part of improving customer service and also reducing the likelihood of returns.
Although, Ian, I have to say one thing because it's true. If you deliver first time on time, the chance of a return is smaller, but returns do happen. I don't know if you guys, if you've got wives, some of you, girlfriends, my wife likes shoes.
Wives, plural. Go on.
Well, in the plural, wives, usually one each, I guess. But my wife likes to buy loads of shoes. And the chances are she'll buy 3 or 4 pairs and 1 or 2 won't match. Returns are a real pain. And our nearest locker is 350 meters away. All she does to make a return is press one button on the app, locker opens, no label needed, nothing. Super easy.
Right, now we've got a question down the front here.
Thank you. It's a question about the UK market. how far behind do you think the UK market is? Why do you think that is? And how do you see it actually?
Super question, thank you. The UK is funny because it's not behind in some ways. So one of the key elements of success for any out-of-home network is something called IDM, Interactive Delivery Management. If you're from the UK, then Predict probably says something to you. DPD invented something called Predict, which is probably one of the best IDM solutions around. If you want out-of-home to work, you have to be able to communicate interactively. So if anyone hasn't seen IDM, think of Uber for parcels. It's a way that the customer can share their preferences, change their mind, say which locker or PUDO they want to go to. So in terms of IDM, the UK is frankly light years ahead of any other market I know. In terms of PUDOs, Collect Plus, I think 11,000 points now, is also pretty strong. So PUDOs work pretty well. Lockers historically have not worked, probably for a number of reasons. A lot of people say to me, UK is not a locker market. I say, that's rubbish. It's only because nobody has made a solution or offered a solution that works. So you actually do have one company that's been successful historically, which is Amazon, because they have great IDM, because they have understood the power of lockers. Watch this space because there's a lot of stuff happening in terms of another open network opening up in the UK, but I would say it's a mixed batch. So the UK is way ahead in terms of the interactive delivery management technology, a little bit behind in lockers, but I rarely make, and I won't make a bet, but I'm going to even do something more. I'll state something. Within 5 years, that's going to change dramatically.